Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Alia Atika Ashikin binti Abdul Hamid from University Malaysia Kelantan Jeli. I would like to present my paper on flood risk and its effect on property value in Kelantan. In general, flooding is the inundation of land surface when water channels overspill the banks or when a river is overtopped. Like in many other places, Kelantan has a history of floods with severe events occurring many times. In those years, much of Kelantan's soil were hit and its population was badly affected. The great majorities of Kelantan's population are farmers, small entrepreneurs, fishermen or paid workers. Agriculture is the main economic mainstay as well as the state's main landscape everywhere. The main crops cultivated are rubber, oil palm, paddy and arable crops. A large proportion of the agricultural areas is flood-prone and has low productivity. In the case of Kelantan, it is yet to establish whether flood has any effect on property value. In particular, this study was motivated by the flood incidents in December 2014 that badly hit many population centres in Kelantan. This more than 500-year flood magnitude has triggered a question of whether it has any impact on property market. In areas where the people are much attracted to live, for example in urban areas or economic activity zones, flood phenomenon may not be detrimental to them. With the low-level economic development and agriculture-dominated sector, it was interesting to discover whether flood has actually any significant impact to the people. And one indirect way of finding out the answer is by examining the effect of flood risk on property value. Okay, this is the location of study area, which involves Kuala Krai, Manik Rai, Dabung, and flood occurred when many of the rivers in Sungai Kelantan river systems, such as the Sungai Galas, the Sungai Lebir, and also Sungai Pergau, spilled their banks within the narrow valleys of river systems, which run 330 degrees northeasterly before converging into Sungai Kelantan. Within the Sungai Kelantan system itself, flood inundation spanned as wide as 8 km across both sides of the river, especially near Kuala Krai, which 5 km wide near Manik Rai, 2 km wide near Kuala Bala, and 1 km wide near Dabung. Flood depth in some localities was as deep as 25 meters, especially near Kuala Krai, Kuala Bala, Dabung and Manik Rai. Flood depth of 5 to 50 meters was common in 70% of the inundated area. The methodology for this study is divided into three. First is flood modeling, second property value modeling, and third is damage assessment. First, we would like to look at the concept of maximum flood depth. So, flood depth was based on the height difference between the earth surface, which includes the normal or current level of the river, and the maximum water level. If the current level of the river is higher or lower than the normal level during data recording, the maximum flood level in the river will be in difference with the calculation made using normal level and telemetry station data. Next, we would looked at the measuring actual flood depth. So we can see that the actual flood level measurement is based on the color mark left on the wall. Based on the photo, the depth of the flood from the ground level was 3.7 meters. The location of the site was also recorded using the global positioning system. The next methodology is property value modeling, which uses ordinary least square and geographic weighted regression. The model was run using the OLS regression first with a purpose of checking for the significant factors determining property value. Since partial prediction of property value was required, the GWR was then run using the list of variables from the OLS results. So this model was evaluated by first looking at the variable significance, which the model at least the variable must be significance at 10% level. Nonetheless, higher level of significance at 5% or 1% was expected. Second, the model goodness was also assessed on the basis of plausible sign. And this is the general equation involved in this study, which is divided into land value and building value. For land value, the function of flood depth, mukim current activity. This current activity is like whether it is oil palm, is paddy, or rubber, like that. Length on market is how long the value of the land has been on market. The percentage damage, distant to town, distant to road, also lot size. For building value, flood is a function of flood depth, building area, mukim, current activity. For building value is such as whether it is industrial, residential, or commercial. The type of building is whether it is terrace, bungalow, or semi-detached. Number of rooms, number of floor, percentage of damage, length on market, distant to town, and distant to road. So this is the next step in methodology, which is the damage assessment. And this study uses a simple survey-based damage assessment involving two-step procedure, which first is field inspection, which several aspects were observed and assessed. First, damages to property contents and structure were carefully examined. Structure refers to any building such as farm building, house, factory. For agricultural property, structure can be the soil, trees, and any building on it. Content refers to any non-structural movable components of a property such as furniture, tools, and equipment. The content and structural damages was expressed in percentage. Second, purposive random sampling. The sample was purposely chosen based on the extent of model flood. You can see the coverage and direction in the figure, and the property damages were roughly assessed by visual estimates at 337 randomly selected points within the area of flood inundation. Each of these 337 observation sites was inspected, and this location and the observation sites is the color green, the survey points you can see in the legend. Next is results based on the relationship based on spatial model. First is the OLS regression for land value. So looking at the multiple R square, it is lacking explanatory power because it explained only 15.83% variation in the land value. And but we can see the flood depth. It has a positive relationship, which means locations with deep flood were locations with high property value. It also is statistically significant at least at 10% level. And looking at the percentage of damage, it also affects land value positively, which means location with high damage were locations with high property value, but it is statistically insignificant. For OLS regression for the building value, looking at the multiple R square, it is moderately good. It explains 68% variation in the building value. Looking at the flood depth, it has positive relationship also, which means locations with deep flood were locations with high property value, and it is statistically significant at least at 10% level. For the percentage of damage, it also affects building value positively, which means location with high damage were location with high property value, and it is statistically significant at least at 5% level. Okay, next we are looking at the GWR for land value. Non-building is land value. And looking at the flood depth, it has positive influence on property value, which means locations with deep flood were locations with high property value, and it is statistically significant at 10% level. And again, looking at the percentage damage, it affects non-building value positively, which means location with high damage were locations with high property value. Last, we will look at the distance to road. The property value was plausibly related, and we can see that it negatively influenced property value, which means locations far away from town or road have lower prices than those closer to them, and it is statistically significant at 5% level. And we can look at the GWR for building value, and also the local R-square for building value is moderately good. It explains 60% variation in the building value. Looking at the flood depth, it has positive relationship with 10% significant level, which means location with deep flood were locations with high property value. And we can look at the percentage of damage. This time it affects building value negatively, and it is 10% significant level. Locations with high damage were locations with low property value. And the length on market means that how long it has been on the market. It shows that it's not the length on market, it's the distance to town. So it shows that the distance from nearest town positively increase property value, and it is marginally significant. Next, we are going to look at flood hit and flood free properties. The left one is for building properties and the right is land properties. Then we are going to transform into a table for it to be better seen, and we can see that the total price, average price for flood hit for building is 1,055 compared to flood free building, which is lower, 690 ringgit. Also for the land value, the non-building is the land value, and it also, the flood hit has a higher price, average price, than the flood free. So obviously, overall, these results confirmed the previous observation that flood phenomenon did not affect property value. The figures even show that properties in the flood hit locations in the study area have enjoyed a much higher level of property price during the last decade. So we have come to a conclusion for our research, which has two main findings. First is there was no evidence of declining property value neither among flood-hit nor flood-free locations. Even there was indication that property value had continued to increase in those neighborhoods over time, reflecting people's ignorance of flood risk within their living neighborhoods. In the meantime, value factors such as land and building size, type of activity, location, and time factor had remained as the pertinent property value determinants. And second, also with a seemingly non-declining property value against flood risk in an indirect way, this study has examined property value as a reflector of people's willingness to pay to live in a flood-prone location. It was disclosed that while high flood depth has caused high property damages, high flood depth and high property value have also coexisted in almost all locations in the study area. This was evidence that flood risk has not deterred people in property ownership or in the choice of location for living. So, Lastly, I would like to thank Associate Professor Dr. Adlik Satyamurthy from University Malaysia Terengganu for his contribution in coaching and allowing me to learn about flood modelling. His generosity has also allowed me to use his special data on model flood as an important part of this study. So that's all. Thank you.